Welcome, everyone, to Tripadvisor Talk. It's a new weekly discussion show in which we will connect with leaders in the travel sector to talk about what's happening, how and when we can start traveling again, and the changing face of our industry in light of recent events. Today, I'm super excited to welcome 5 leaders from the resort sector, many of whom I've known for years and whom I respect immensely. We have Mr. Neil Jacobs, CEO of Six Senses, Mr. James McBride, CEO of Nihi Sumba, Tommy Lai, CEO of GHM Hotels, Nikhil Advani, COO of Grace Bay Resorts over in Turks and Caicos, and last but never least, Doris Go from Asia Land and Sea. So gentlemen and Doris, this is a crazy time. I know we all want to talk about what's happening in the near future and what we can all do to look at recovery plans. But I want to look back a little bit at what's happened. Was there anything in your playbooks that could have prepared you for this current crisis or did prepare you? I know some of you have resorts that have faced natural disasters and other crises. So did you have anything in your playbooks that could have helped or did help with this?
I think, Neil, I'll kick off if you like. I think in some ways, being out in Asia and having been in Asia for many, many years on and off, we were a little more prepared than they were in the US or Europe, given that, many of us lived through SARS, which, there are some points in comparison. And certainly I think it prepared Singapore government and South Korean government and other governments around the region to really put plans together on the basis that it was going to happen again. So, nobody could have expected quite the breadth of what's been going on, and this has been global, but certainly I think that helped me for sure personally maneuver through some of what's been going on.
I agree with you completely, James McBride, Neil. I think that the ability, I think September 11th probably, I was in Washington, D.C. at that time, and decisive decision making. And if you decide your plan and what you do and you act quickly, and I think that was something we were fortunate here is to make your decision, whether it's right or wrong, act quickly and follow that instinct and execute. And I think when you dilly-dally and you're waiting and you're not sure, you can have some, it just doesn't end in a good result.
Nikhil, I know you were in New York, actually, during 9/11, right?
Yeah, I think our whole career has been dotted with a whole bunch of crisis. I guess don't go where I go. New York was interesting because it was totally different. And I think James and Neil said it correctly. We've been through various crises. They're all very different, but there's some things that are same. Here in the Caribbean, in Turks and Caicos, we just had in 2017 2 Category 5 hurricanes back to back. All that knowledge that we've picked up, decide fast, keep your team together as best as you can, communicate. So those were the key things that we did. And we learned a lot. Each one has been different. From the 97 crisis in Asia, James and me were in Kuala Lumpur at that time with Ritz-Carlton, to 9/11, to the hurricanes. There have been a lot of different ones. So I totally agree with both of them. But communicate was big on this one because we were learning so much as we went along. And it happened so quickly and so deep.
Tommy, did GHM have any crisis plans in place that really helped you?
Well, I guess likewise to all my fellow panelists, it's the same. We are Asian-based company, so we are more prepared comparatively. But I have to say that because of the lead time that was given, so the epicenter of that crisis was quite far away from most of our hotel. So there is a time lag. So unlike earthquakes or volcano eruption in some of our property last time, it's not immediate. So there's a lot of time that we can use to plan ahead. Unfortunately, this pandemic is far-reaching, much, much deeper and much longer than we expected. So no matter what experiences that we had previously, or whether it's on a SARS basis, on a MERS basis, this seems to be on a scale that we haven't seen this. So there's a lot of learning curve here. We have to learn and we have to adopt what we already have, but probably we have to extend the intensity a little bit more. So I think it's fortunate that the epicenter wasn't that close to us, thus we have a lot of time to react.
Doris, you're often in a position where you are writing the crisis plan for your colleagues. Did you guys have anything that, and you've seen a lot through many different hotel organizations. Was there anything that you said, we need to do this right away to protect our business interests?
It's funny because when I think back, when I joined Alila, it was in SARS, the year of SARS. Can you imagine right now with my new venture, it is COVID-19. So I don't know what's that coincidence or whatever. But to me, really, I think it's a great reset, like I've said, So right now for us, in a way, we are in a much better position because we're ready to Asia Land and Sea has predominantly been a pioneering force in florists where they own large tracts of land, and they're really into, for the longest time, selling of land. So together right now with our teams, we're building up to do development, but sustainable development, because we really see how do you make a difference. So I think fortunately for us, we don't have to suffer, a lot of what our resorts are suffering, which is very painful. I mean, we're trying our best to help the locals and equip them how to handle the pandemic. But at the same time, it allows us to really rethink, how we're going to go about doing things in a much better way when we wake up to a kinder world. That's what I've said. So to be honest, I think I'm very fortunate and very grateful that I can again, take on a position like this to start again from the ground up and hopefully really do better things and make it more meaningful for both our travelers, for stakeholders, and of course our owners.
I do want to jump on this idea of a rethink and a reset soon, but I want to just get a snapshot from each of you also of, how is your current business doing? I mean, if you're willing to share, are any properties open? How has it been traumatic? Have you been able to ride through? Did you have cash reserves in place? How are you doing as in terms of your businesses?
I think probably, ourselves, amongst the group, we have the most operating hotels amongst the panel, I believe. And, the obvious side of it is that we'd spent 4 weeks closing pretty much everything, which is a really depressing place to be, hotels, new hotels that were to open. We had 3 or 4 that were going to open this year. Clearly, will probably not open this year. But, just closing everything down and working in 17 or 18 legal jurisdictions and different countries and, labor laws in every country. I mean, it's been a pretty intense time, and probably the first time for all of us that we've pretty much been in a zero revenue environment, which is kind of hard to fathom. You never really thought that you think, yeah, business is going to go down, but really to be in a place where there is no revenue. Now, for us, that works on two levels. One, because, we don't own hotels. We're a management company. So no one wants to pay for anything, particularly when the hotels are closed. So there's zero revenue coming into the management company, but also kind of working with all of our different owners, all of whom have different situations and different financing arrangements around their hotels. So really trying to help and work with them to mitigate those situations for owners. So it's been a pretty intense period that went on for about 3 to 4 weeks. But we also got to a point that we had to get out of that negative phase, if you like, because it was really it was really becoming depressing for everybody. And so we kind of shift gear and started talking, you know, three weeks ago about who are we going to be when we come out of this the other end? You know, what is the new and improved version? And, you know, we felt kind of blessed that the company is based on this platform of sustainability and, and wellness. And frankly, nothing is more important, we think, than that at this period of time. So the focus now is how do we broaden and deepen all the things that we were doing anyway and really come out the other end, as Doris was saying, with a new and improved version of who we were beforehand. So as a result of that, we're pretty excited and we're pretty positive about the future, assuming, you know, we will get through this next period.
Go in the same order?
It's up to you guys. Feel free to jump in, you know.
Go ahead, Tom.
All right. Well, sorry about that. Well, we have hotels are closed, temporarily closed, and we have hotels that are still opened, and we have hotels that are in pre-opened. So that's the tricky part. Closing is not, to me, closing was actually inevitable because a lot of government actions is actually a lot of them are local government requirements asked to close down. So you have no choice but to really quicken the steps to close it. But now the problem for us now is how to determine the opening. We all want to be different after we open because of all these new measures, but we are in the midst of it, and all these measures of social distancing, sanitizing, and all these things are still very new, and there's no so-called one standard to adopt, and that is one under operation. Then the other one will be determining the market. How can we say, let's say for a pre-opening team and project that we're supposed to open within the next, in fact, we're supposed to open this month, but now have to delay. So when is a good time to open? And we have to share with the owners that we actually not very sure when to open because we are relying a lot on tourism. And then if the airlift is not opened, you have no customer coming to that particular location if that location is foreign tourist heavy. So some of our property will be planning for open soon. I'm saying soon it will be probably about another 4 months or so. But that is because we are confident that the local travel will increase. Taking learning from the Chinese market open on the 1st of May, the V-shaped recovery seems to be very encouraging. We are not expecting that in all markets, but those markets that has more local travel into the hotels seems to perform better. So we are planning for that, but it's still like a crystal ball that we are looking. The planning for opening is actually very, very tough now for us.
So I think where I felt very I was just here. I usually come in sort of March to just check on the team and the property moving forward, and everything happened. I have an amazing capital partner, Chris Birch. So from a cash position, we fortunately are in a very good position, but had to make very quick decisions. And those decisions in an environment like Sumba, for those that don't know where Sumba is an hour east of Bali. It's 2.5 times bigger than Bali. 550,000 people live on Sumba, and we are the biggest taxpayer, biggest business, and biggest employer, where we have 400 employees on the 33 keys and probably support, each person probably supports about 27 people of their immediate family. So everything becomes more emotional. It becomes fundamentally as to where 6-7 years ago people were making $30-40 a month. with the service charge and everything over the last 5 or 6 years, they've been making $500 or $600 a month. So it's sort of become a first world economy in a third world place where you've got a cell phone, you've got a bigger motorbike, where you used to walk, you used to take a horse. So you've had this whole sort of change in culture that is being driven by one single business. So in making the decision to keep everyone at 50%, without the service charge, you've got people that were making $500 or $600 who are now making $80. And what touched my heart more than anything and has made this experience life-changing for me and given me perspective that I truly have never had before is how that was accepted. It was accepted with tears of joy. It was accepted with gratitude. It was accepted without greed. And it was just, I don't know, it gave me a different viewpoint, and it made me evaluate sort of my life. And we're about to announce 2 new deals which have been put on hold. And it brought me back to Sumba. And it's made me a better person, and because we are taking care of everyone here. And I think, as Neil mentioned, we fortunately, Neil and I are on a very similar business model. And given we have so much space, 2.5 kilometer beach, 500 hectares, activities all over the island, I think it's going to be what people are looking for. Talking about reopening, we've pared down to a very light version. July and August is our peak season. And we've got regulars that come every year that have come for the last 6 or 7 years. We can drive probably $2 million worth of revenue, if we did $600,000 or $700,000 worth of revenue from July 20 till the end of August, it would be fabulous, but it's going to be on a light version. So we'll go back to sort of Claude days of the Niiwatu, where you may order your dinner at lunchtime, the Japanese and all of the more shishi things that we have would be closed. But your consumer that's coming back, they don't care. I've spoken to them all. They just want to come back and see the people and feel it. But we'll be able to make a decision with the airlift. I don't know when it's going to open. Who knows? They put a huge ban on a week ago, and they announced yesterday that they're starting travel again. What's going to be imposed from a customs perspective, quarantine, I don't know. But we have put the team together that if we want to open in 2 weeks' time because something dramatically happens, we can. And to be able to be nimble, react, and open. And if we have to stay closed until next April, we have to stay closed till next April, because I truly don't have the answer. That's it.
I think something you said, James, is interesting, and I want to ask the group about this as well, in that you've spoken to a lot of your customers. And for resort brands, especially in the travel space, people are very loyal and very passionate about the resort brands that they love. So how have all of you stayed connected in this time in which no one can travel? How have you maintained those relationships? How have you stayed connected to your current audience, to your past travelers, and also still engaging potential new travelers?
Certainly from, that's a really good question. And I also would love to go back to afterwards to the personal aspect of this, as James was talking about, because I think that's a really important consideration throughout all this. But we certainly took a view, and the key to all of this is to be able to move rapidly. That was, Nikhil was talking about that earlier. It's just the speed in which one can react. And as this whole thing was coming unglued, we took a view that we had to be out digitally in a way that we had as a company never been before. And, we knew this wasn't about promoting hotels or resorts, but it was just about, giving to the world out there, to our guests and not our guests, the things that we do know how to do around wellness, sustainability, and just healthy living, and put it out on the wire. So within about 4 or 5 days, we actually created, At Home with Six Senses. And I think we were probably one of the first to be out there. And we were doing meditation classes and yoga classes and cooking classes and so on. And it was really the piece that was really resonated with me about it was that it was extremely raw, right? There was no time to create, to produce anything, to kind of make it marketing like, which is what we do when we go out and on these platforms. So, it was my head of yoga doing a class in his living room somewhere in India. And it was just really honest and heartfelt. And because that's what it was. It was, how do we put this out there? We do things that we think are useful to people at this time. And over the 4 or 5 weeks, it's evolved. We've now got doing segments with our general managers who are just walking around their properties, but not saying, look at my room, look at my restaurant. It's like our guy in Portugal, Nick, walked people through the forest and it was looking at the plants. And, we do stuff like that. And it's really not particularly well put together. But when, GM in Samui is taking you through our chicken farm and we're feeding our goats in Ziggy Bay, I don't know, this stuff just kind of resonates with people on a different emotional level to what we typically would do as luxury hotel groups, so that has kind of changed our thinking a little bit about how do we communicate to the world at large.
I'll just jump in here. Neil, I got to compliment you on that. We took a page out of your book. We thought if they can do it, Six Senses, and it's a bit raw, we can create our own stuff. So I think, as we said, communicate. That was a big thing. And we reached out through our travel professionals because we have 60% of our guests that come through travel professionals or through our staff. You'll be surprised in the Caribbean. The beauty about the Caribbean people is they connect with your guests on an emotional level. You could be a president sitting on one side or just a guest walking off the street on one side, and they'll treat you exactly the same. They've got this incredible warmth. And so a lot of our guests are in connection with WhatsApp to our staff directly. So besides doing the programs for our teams, there were a lot of unofficial sort of routes that our team was in connection with our guests. It was on social channels as well, whether it be Facebook and Instagram. But the general feedback was, how's the team doing? And the relationships that are formed, we have about 35 to 38% repeat in all 3 of our properties. And the incredible questions were, how's the team doing? How is Marvelous Marvin? How is, the bartender Martin who does all these amazing cocktails? It was all about people. And I think if you go back to Tripadvisor, which you guys do such a great job, and you read the comments, it's all about the people. And I think a lot of our properties have a very similar sort of DNA where, they're great properties around great places in the world, some of the best beaches in the world, but it's all the people that bring them alive. And in the end, the relationships that are created with our guests is really what the people were checking on. So we'd give updates or whatever it may be, and then you'll see 15, 20, 30, 40 comments on how so-and-so, how they're doing, and we connect that way. So I think we've learned that these unofficial channels in times of crisis are just as important as the soft emailer to say how you're doing or the social media channels, because it's just that people have learned to connect in so many different ways today. As you know, when you get a message, it's not just email. It could be on WeChat. It could be on WhatsApp. And I'm going to check all the different tools to make sure I know which one I'm, keeping in touch with. Here in Turks and Caicos, we acted earlier. As Tommy said, we kind of looked around the world. We realized that we didn't have the medical capacity in the Turks and Caicos Islands for a pandemic. So with the governor, the Honorable Premier, we made a decision really early, about 6 weeks ago, to do a full lockdown, similar to what Singapore is doing right now. And we did that because we just realized we couldn't deal with a pandemic of this sort of scale. And so we've been on lockdown for 5.5 weeks. We've turned the corner. We've got 12 cases, so it's not a big amount. We have a good hold on the situation, and now we're figuring out the steps of how to reopen. We're working with the airports, and because a large part of what we do is linked to the United States, about 90% of our business from the Americas, it's working with them and finding out what their plans are. And their plans, as you can see, half of them want to open up from the south, and the north is still going through quite a difficult time. So we're working with different partners within the United States to understand that area. We're looking at working with government to put together processes all the way from the airport to taxis to getting to the resort to going around, having contact tracing apps that we've put together so that we can at least track things that are happening, give people a peace of mind, because that generally what they want now is a peace of mind. As James said, they'll call him personally, they'll call Neil, they'll call Tommy, they'll call the GMs personally because it's a relationship business. And just like in SARS when I was at the Raffles, when they called me and we were not ready to have guests, it was not about the money, it was not about the rate. It was about a peace of mind. And I think that's going to be the same thing for this particular crisis is, hey, Nikhil, is it safe to come back? Do you have processes in place? That's the question we're getting from our guests. They're excited to come back, but they're not ready to travel. So in the time that we have before we open, it's putting all these processes in together, and the optics are going to be really important as well as the processes.
Right. I like to jump in and I would like to say, kudos to what James is doing, and what Neil shared. But James, I have always been a fan of what you've done, for the community, seriously. And I met you last year, at Further East. It further pushes me, to say the next journey I want to go on has to be something that's really meaningful and impactful. And I'm glad, like right now, same like what you guys have been doing, because nothing at this time, I think what people want is the truth. They want sincerity. And so I think what you guys have done, raw as it may seem, but it's real, because people don't want to be, having any of this marketing flaws anymore. They want to see what you really mean. So back where we are right now, it's a new company, we just set up, I just joined them about 2 months ago. And basically we now look at the people, like what James you've been doing. So right now one of our projects is on community housing. So the company is doing a lot of projects like this, which I think the timing is right also from the marketing point of view, because now people are also looking to do something meaningful and something that will go a longer way, especially with the world as it is right now, like you say, wellness, peace, tranquility, where we can go for solitude and for real healing, So it was from that basis that we look at, how we're going to do our developments, into, and also taking care of the people, because nothing like looking after your own neighbors and being a good neighbor and being out there to make sure that the community is secured, So I'm very excited that our first project will be on community housing, because eventually when we have other developments, our own team members would need housing too. So very interesting. And on the marketing front, I think right now we have to rethink about our markets. We have to then look at local, because domestic travel is going to come out faster than anything else. People find that it's too dangerous, to go further, and the airlines are not ready to fly far. So I think we have to rethink our marketing strategy in looking at people at home, looking at how we can provide a different form of service, in the form of, families connecting, rebonding, doing things that you've never done before as a family, and thinking of such experiential occasions, or reasons for them to get together. So that's what I feel, would be right down your alley, guys. And like you said, forget about the marketing stuff, but just go for real. Go with your heart, go with what your people, and celebrate their individuality, celebrate what they do every day. And I think people are now getting interested in each other, because we've been locked down, you can't help it, but look around and say, what the hell we're going to do, right? So yes, so that's my 2 cents worth.
No, I think to what Neil said, and we've been fortunate we have a big digital platform as well, Raw and Real, and connecting in a simple way that people can be projected to where you are, that they can be projected from their lives, where it's never ostentatious, it's never braggy, it's real. And I think that the realness of capturing the heart and mind for us has been, we all track this stuff. I think web traffic from our digital platforms is up sort of like 50%. And that from that side and just in calibrating it's been phenomenal. And I think just to add to what you were saying, Doris, about we raised through the generosity of people. Chris kindly donated $200,000 to the Sumba Foundation, and we tried to match that. And to date, we've raised $130,000. And last week, everyone and all of our employees and a lot of people in the community and the villages around got a 25 kg bag of rice, oil, sugar, coffee in a box. And when you witness these kind of things and you emotion that is created and the loyalty to you as an organization that is formed is phenomenal. And the people that have given the money, obviously we share it with them what has happened, but to your point, it's real. And when stuff is real, and what Neil, Nikhil, what you're all doing is so much stuff is just skin deep. You just scratch all bullshit. Excuse my language. But it's the eco part has been so overplayed. It's not real. You know, we're just doing it so that we don't have to change your sheets or give you a bad shower with no pressure to save money, and it's been fake. And when it's done and it's real and it's got depth and heart and soul, it really, really is very compelling and drives business. And people want to bring their children back every year to see the well that was dug, to see the people, and to connect with real things. And fortunately, we've been doing that for a while, and we will continue, but probably do it even more, because I even get it more now. I got it, but we fly in here, doing this, doing that, whatever, going here, going there. I'm trade showed it out. How everyone went to like 8 trade shows a year and see the same people over and over again. I'm like, come on, guys, really? You look at your budgets of how much you've spent. I mean, how many times do people need to see each other a year? Seriously. We go here, we'll go here, we go there, we go to Cannes, we go there, we go there. I mean, a lot of that stuff's going to change from my perspective too. And it's going to become more centered and more focused in every way.
James, I
love what you said.
Huh?
James,
Okay.
What, Nikhil?
Who's going first?
Go ahead, Nikhil. Nikhil, go ahead.
Sorry, no, James, I want to see you in Cannes.
Yeah, but that's different, okay? Because you want to hang out. So just tell it like it is. We want to go and see each other in Cannes, and you want to go to Marrakesh, and you pick 2 or 3, and those you do because you want to have a good time. You want to see your friends, and you want to do it all. But the whole fundamental of a lot of the things of how it's all calibrated now is not fundamentally right. I mean, it's been built into the system because that's what you do.
Guys,
you got to be real.
I just want to say something. I mean, we are, all of us kind of on this panel are very blessed from the perspective that the segment of, the market, our businesses are such that allow us to do and behave in ways that if you're running, limited service hotels in North America or something else that you can't do. So we are in a world that is kind of different to 99% of the population. What we do is all about connection. It is, as everyone has talked about, it's about that emotional piece that exists more often than not with our staff and our guests. I mean, that's a very real part of the success of all of our hotels. And I just feel, we're seeing this all in action today, and we're seeing the reactions of our employees. But, we do have, and what brings home to me is it just reinforces that we have an obligation. This isn't about making money. This isn't about running luxury hotels. But given the business we're in, we do have an obligation to look after people the way that we are looking after them. And the story, James said about the reaction of the Mihi employees going back to $80. It's just, they react that way because they feel part of a family. that feeling that it goes beyond whether it's $80 or $100 or $20. It's just they feel that they belong to the family that you've created. And I think that exists in a lot of hotels like the ones that we operate. And certainly to me, some of the good, I think there's a lot of good that is coming out of this pandemic, both on a business level and very much on a personal level, as was talked about earlier. But, it just brings home to me that we have to do more of it. That's part of what we're here for. And by doing that, we will succeed in our businesses. It's not actually the other way around. It's integrate, it's connect, it's care for. We are caregivers as hotel people. It's about providing experiences that are lasting and people of memory, and it's about looking after our people, whether it's guests or, it's simple, right? We've talked about this since the beginning of our careers, but nothing has brought this home to me in quite the way that this pandemic has. And, we can make a difference. We do make a difference, even in, we can have one hotel or 50 hotels. It doesn't matter. One hotel can make a huge difference in that environment. And I feel so strongly about this. And that to me is the big takeaway, is just do more, care more, and contribute more. And it's going to come back to us.
I want to talk a bit more about this, because I think something that all of you have mentioned, is that there has been some good that has come out of it, of this pandemic. There are some silver linings. My own company, Tripadvisor, our motto is "There's good out there." We have this deep belief that there people are want to help other people, that there are silver linings, that as we travel, it actually is beneficial to you in many ways. So for each of you, both from a business perspective and also from a personal perspective, because you've talked about that already a bit, what is some of the good that has happened that you've seen?
Well, just to carry on to the topic, is that it is fabulous that we are trying all our best, especially when we are in this group of hotels, that we are able to do a lot of things. And I also have to be very thankful. During crisis, you see the real faces, honestly. We are very blessed to have very good owners, to be honest. Basically, the hotel has to temporarily close, or there's totally zero customers. But the owners has to support. We are doing our best to minimize the impact, the financial impact of the owners. But the owners comes forward to realize the fact that and the hotels that we run tends to have a much higher staff ratio as compared to a lot of other hotels. So to really support all our colleagues during this period of time is really, really, really. And we are not talking about 3 months. We're not talking about 6 months. We are talking about longer term. So the good that comes of it actually built a relationship between the owners and the group of colleagues that work on the project, and even the corporate office that work with the owners itself. We realize that there's more to just chasing the dollar sometimes, where when it comes to crisis, everybody have to come together, and it really comes together. It's not like you are told to do it. It's like everybody comes at, oh, what happened? How can we support? How can we reduce this? But we have to support on a longer term basis. And everybody talking about supporting, ensuring that everybody is okay with it, how we can get along and how we can tie through this period. Every owners that we are working with are having the same mindset. And we are very blessed. Honestly, we are very blessed. So there's good come out of it, honestly. I want to share on that.
I think the contribution of a hotel. I was speaking to Satinder yesterday, Neil, and he told me that I think your Six Senses is taken over by the Singapore government and people are staying there, and it's used as a quarantine place, and all of the of how hotels, as they did in world wars, and the integration of the people. And if I look at all the stuff in England with how they're supporting and making things, and you've learned all this through digital platforms. And I think that, yes, competition will always be there, but it brings the heart and the mind together. And I think that interaction of a common goal of good. Now, the big question is, how long will that last? I think that's the big question on everyone's mind. Because once everyone starts traveling, and in this digital rapid age, everyone forgets very, very quickly. And by this time next year, when you're in an airport and you're here and you're there, and Neil and I have been trying to have dinner for about a year and never succeeded because I'm in New York, he's in New York, we're not in New York, it's here now. So I think I would love people's opinion on that as well, as to, do you think this will innately stay within the psyche of people? And just what general thoughts are as to the emotional connection inside of that, and how quickly will people revert back, because they will, and how that will all kind of tie together. I would love the thoughts of the panel with that, if you don't mind.
I'd love to hear that.
I think you're right, James. I mean, it will. It's not going to be like this forever, but I genuinely do not believe that it will go back to exactly where it was. I think the impact has been too great. People do want to travel. They will get on planes once they're feeling safe, and that can happen through a number of things. But, people will start moving again. They want to travel, and they want to go to the kind of places we have. But I don't believe anyone will be exactly the same as they were before. I think they will be a greater mindfulness amongst people. I think there'll be a greater awareness of self and others. And even if it's small moves, it doesn't matter. I think the world is going to be slightly different, even when people start to behave as they perceive as normal. I just see it. I mean, just to pick up on what you've said about the Singapore hotels for us, that in itself has been an extraordinary experience that certainly the people that have been staying in our two hotels there, and the staff, will never ever forget. I mean, we've been looking after basically returning nationals and PRs who were encouraged to come back to Singapore and have to do, 14 days quarantine. Our hotels are both historic, so the rooms are not very big. They're very quirky. So you cannot leave the bedroom, right? You can't. You can't go into the public areas. You are in some cases, 200 square foot bedroom. It's very beautiful. Tinder did it. It's very lovely, but it's still 200 square feet, right? So it's like, how do we look after these people? We deliver 4 meals a day. How do you look after them? And have them feel something and just feel whole and de-stressed and wanting to see their families. And we put a huge amount of time into trying to entertain people through Zoom things and stuff put under the doors and a cooking class and so on. We've really been interacting with them, and the reaction of people. I mean, birthdays, we were outside the door, we were singing happy birthday, we put a cake through the door and so on. But the reactions of people and what's been written and just kind of out of acts of kindness, those guests are never going to forget that. And we will never forget it. It's changed the employees of those two hotels considerably. I assure you, just to be in their space and talk to them and hear from them, there's no going back to exactly where they were. So I really do believe that a shift has occurred, and then we'll get back to normal. But it's never going to leave you, right? I really believe strongly in that.
Can I jump in here? Because I feel very strongly on what Neil has said. I personally, that's my personal thought, that this is the very moment of the turning point of human behavior, a great paradigm shift of our social behavior from now onwards. Why do I say that? Because it is only at this point of time where the whole world, not just a city areas, the whole world has been forced to adopt technology and to accept a lot of trust between people that are not so close together. You have to bring back the old working ethics. Like, we have to see people in the office, they're clocking the hours and stuff like that. But the global adoption of technology and work from home has now changed the mindset of a lot of corporates. Working from home will not be an option anymore. Probably will be a standard, and that will be the new normal for all corporates. And that is what I'm adopting anyway for all my colleagues in my HQ. Once it's open, we still on work from home, and that will be something which I see now, that we are taking a leap into the technology era, and a paradigm shift of all our behavior, whether you're young or old. This is the time where we suddenly are united as one, that we adopt a single technology and we adopt that we can do this differently. And that impact a lot of other real estate classes, which will slowly impact the hospitality asset classes. Look at prime commercial space, that will change a lot. Look at even education, one teacher to multi-students, that is ancient. That is, we are talking about thousand years history. One teacher stand in front of class with 30 students. That never changed because we never adopt a trust between the teachers and the educational to the students doing their own work at home. And these have changed totally. And I love to see that change, because we are more efficient that way, because people are not traveling a lot to work, to and fro from work. It used to take, like, I stayed in Shanghai, my colleague had to travel 1.5, 2 hours just to come to work. And all this can be cut down. And then what they are more efficient because they can work from home with their 2 hours or 4 hours of traveling time. And what does that mean? I mean, I see there's a lot of ripple effect coming down. Are they positive? I think they are positive, because then they give them more time to relax and do what they really want. Maybe then that will spill over to traveling. That's why I see a positive impact.
Well, I'd like to add to that. Hello, can you hear me?
Tommy, 1 second. Tommy, 1 second.
Yeah.
1 second. Tommy, which country are you from? Where are you living?
I'm from Singapore.
I see the next Minister of Tourism. Of how you just articulated, you're going to be running for office pretty soon. Definitely going to be running for office. You just encapsulated. We got the hands. We got it all. We got it. It was there. Yeah, I mean, I'm a PR, but if I was a citizen, you got my vote. Everyone better watch out. You're coming. You're going to be running for office.
If you know Singapore well enough, Nahin will not never touch politics.
Never touch politics, but the way you encapsulate it and your passion and you are articulate and thoughtful is like, you know what, they better watch out because you're going to be running for office pretty soon.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
I'm only kidding.
Okay, Doris, you have something to say?
Right. No, I think, you know what we're seeing, like from every one of you, you're talking about the human spirit and how it has been touched and how we're looking inward, and how we are now becoming, we're slowing down and we're trying to look at our environment and at ourselves and changing paradigms and the way we think, the way we live, the way we make our business. Now, but I'm thinking like the silver lining, imagine going out there to businesses, where people are now having to realize that in order to bring humanity back, like to make them realize that I'm serious about my business means that they have to be very serious about climate change. They have to be very serious about really, in our business is sustainable tourism. So I see that there are opportunities for, investors, venture capitalists coming in, to our business, to give us the resources and tools. So for me, I mean, especially right now in my new, company, at Asia Sea, Land and Sea, we see that it is really, this is where we hope to create the platform for funding, for New Horizons, so that we can support a sustainable future. I mean, that's the tagline that I've just dreamed up for the company. But, but seriously, and this is where I think, bankers and people, they want to get their hands into something good, Like, I know a lot of it is, PR and all that, right? We know that. But now they are seriously having to consider because there's no other choice. I mean, it will become the new normal. So I find that a huge benefit to us, our business. Because I think right now, and also, of course, last year, with all these mergers, where the big boys, the big brands, taking over boutique brands, I think right now, all the more it gives us reasons to stay. It gives us reasons to be unique because now people are looking for something else. They're looking for real humanity. They're looking for transformative life experiences. And, and I think out there, the venture capitalists and investors are looking for that. They want to make sure that they want to support that. So a lot of it also depends on us, how we are going out there to teach, especially, Neil, James, Nikhil, Tommy, all of you with your experiences, in honing human capital and also in all these experiences in your various capacity, because there's no one size fits all, so I think it's really up to us to go out there and champion it and teach and educate. And like you said, bringing on, to me also it's important. It is the time where we have to commit to international standards, alignment to, ESG risk management, and, the UN, sustainability, chapter, for instance, we really have to bring that to the fold to make sure that, we give the assurance. Because like you said, everybody is saying that, like, what's sustainability? Yeah. Don't change your towels. Don't change your bed sheets. But it's more than that. It's also about growing local, sourcing local, ethical sourcing, to help the people rather than to bring in things from so far away and looking after their welfare, because in doing so, it goes to the guests, Like what James said, the impact that you have done, on that island for the people. I mean, that transcends into how every guest, when they land in Sumba at your resort, they feel. I mean, the people I talked to has told me that it's just unique, and so many people talk about being a once in a lifetime experience, right? So I think, there's so much for us and there is real reason for optimism. I think, especially we preach this verse, right? So right now, I think seriously, we can be forerunners in that.
I'm going to jump in here because I know that, I have limited time with all of you. And I wanted to pivot a bit to talk about, consumers. James, before we started recording, we were all joking about the fact that we're all in lockdown and that everyone in the world is stuck with their families. And we joked about the fact that the honeymoon business is going to go down dramatically after all this because no one wants to go out again with their partner. But seriously, who do you think will be traveling? Like, who are the consumers that will be booking holidays to resorts? What are some of their priorities also when they start booking holidays? How has that changed?
I think in our case, from as exotic in a location as you can get, it's the adventurer. So I think it's twofold for us. Fortunately, we got a fundamental surfing base, and surfers are very adventurous, and surfers are risk takers. And for us, it's going to be our repeat guests of where, and for Neil's going to be his repeat guests, and is where they know where they're going. When you know where you're going, and you know that, as Nikhil was saying, that action has been taken to revise the standards and to protect their safety, repeat guests, adventurers. If I look at the demographic as well, the people I've spoken to in the Silicon Valley or in the US, friends of mine, regulars, they're iffy. They're probably not going to come. The Europeans, English, they are different. They've got a different mentality, a different look on life. And I think that is going to be the core emotional spirit that will decide how that works. But love your regulars, embrace them, speak to them, make them feel safe, and they will return and spread the word when they go back in this new generation.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think, there are those who are just terrified by their own shadow. They won't come for a long time. And then there are the crazies that will go anywhere, and they will come. And then there's the middle group that we've got to work on. And we've all just got to be able to provide what's a safe environment and adjust some standards accordingly. I mean, I think that goes without saying, but we just need to continue to get better at what we do. I mean, I think Americans, it's going to take a while to see the American market. As James said, Europeans tend to be a little braver and not so sensitive to some of this stuff. So I think they will come back. But I think Asians, those of us that have strong Asian business, I mean, the Chinese will travel. And the minute they get on a plane, they're going to come as soon as countries are open and they're let in. I mean, the Korean business will come. I mean, I was saying earlier, we reopened 2 hotels in Vietnam last weekend for the Labor Day weekend. We were sold out for 4 days, and we're going to do, probably 60% occupancy for the month of May in those 2 hotels. And that's domestic business, right? It's Vietnamese nationals and expats living in Vietnam. Well, the whole domestic travel thing is going to be huge. It's difficult, on some of the islands that we're on because there's not that much of it. But, I mean, that's what's going to come first. And I think it's going to be followed, quickly. And I don't believe it's going to take as long as for our segment of the business as it is for others. I think, people who have the means, the financial means to stay in our hotels will come. We have lots of villa hotels. You have space. They don't have to be, you're not piled into, intense hotel buildings. Our environments lend themselves to bring people back quicker. So I'm confident.
I'll jump in to say I totally agree with Neil. I think the private villa business is going to be a big one. We've got a lot of requests. It's private jet, private villa, and a lot of our properties have those sort of products to offer. So I think that's one. I think you're going to look at each market slightly differently. So as we look at the U.S., which is our biggest market, the South, which has not been hit too badly, Texas, they're ready to book again. Atlanta, Georgia, they're ready to book again. But when we speak to people in New York, I mean, they're freaked out totally. So I think it's what we've had to do is kind of segment our communication. As some places are opening up, they're ready to talk to you. They're ready to dream a little bit more. And in markets where, like New York and Washington, they definitely are not ready to travel, even some of the more bold persons. So I think it's a mix of people depending on what the markets are. And as James says, the English are a lot more adventurous and they probably get on a plane right away. So I think we're kind of learning to segment the market and speak to them differently. Some are in the dreaming stage, some are in the what's going on stage. We're not even thinking about travel. So you just got to feel that out a little bit. But then the private villa business is definitely a big one. And also we see the high-end business comes back faster than most other. So it's sort of everything there's sort of a little lag between. So we'll be the first to come out of this in the next couple of months or years, whatever that may be. Hopefully months.
Well, my take on it is that, travel is going to be far and few between, but it will be longer and more meaningful trips, for people. And, that, like I said, may it be, rural places, rural paradises, or villa stays and things like that. I think people are really going to be, because they're going to plan for longer trips and that therefore they want to be all that more engaging, so I think, there's a lot to prepare for. And of course, the way we pack, the way we present our services, what are the precautions, ensuring that you have got isolation rooms, I mean, that's one of the things that spring to mind. So maybe put aside one of your villas, with all the equipment and things like that. I think guests just want to feel assured, what if? But on the other hand, I mean, like you said, I think really the guest that goes for, your kind of resorts, would want to, they want to come back at first sign, when there is a flight available, But at the same time, of course, that is that what if. So, to know that you have put in so much effort to ensure their safety would help a long way.
I agree with my panelists and the great views. I'm very optimistic about our industry, honestly, because usually for travelers like our customers, they are considered a little bit more able to do very private travels. On top of that, trust. We have a lot of return customers in our books, and the trust between the operators and the customers are so important, like what Neil says and all our other panelists have said. The trust is important. Tourists also talk about if we have plans in place, but you need to trust the person that put the plan in place. So our customers will have that trust with us. But more importantly, like what I see is that I would see that to really open up the market, whether it's aviation market and stuff like that, because we are now in a very different time, or we call it the graph of the peak of different locations. But there's one thing that's coming in very fast, that is the testing of antibodies in all of our body if you want to travel. And that will probably revolutionize or optimize traveling by saying that I have immunity, something to that extent. So I'm positive that once that is being done within the next 6 months or so, hopefully, finger crossed, and then you have a biometric records, or to a certain extent that you are immune. Because to be honest, whatever cleaning, whatever sanitization or plans put in place is only targeting the history. What we are targeting is history. That means what is being known for SARS, for COVID. But what is future? It may be not COVID, it may be something else. That whatever we have done, our preparation is not enough. So what it is? So people tends to, after a while, tends to go back. History will repeat itself, go back to what their normal lifestyle is. But having said that, there is already change. They will not be in the same traveling patterns. They will change a little bit. But I foresee that there will be certain kind of test, not vaccine. Vaccine takes a bit longer and there's some side effect, but a certain kind of test that it can prove that you have certain form of antibodies that you are probably immune, and that probably give us, even no matter how much we're going to put in on the cleaning and whatever sanitization, we are also put at rest that, our customers arriving here are at least are not a high risk group. Whether there's a risk, well, there's talks about second infection or whatever, but nobody knows. But at least we know that 80% or 90% of chances that they will not get infected. So that I hope that this will happen quickly within the 6 months or so.
Great. I think I've hogged your time for quite a bit, so I'm gonna just end here. But first, ask if you guys have any final thoughts on the sector, on things that have affected you. Maybe we can just go around the I won't say room, but we can go around the panel and just share some final thoughts before we end the session. We can start back where we just ended. Minister Lai, would you like to kick us off?
Hey, don't say that. You know that. All right, okay. Well, I am optimistic, but yet I'm also a little fearful of what next for the planning of the hotels. Planning, I mean, is not just operation. I'm talking about the new regulations that various different jurisdictions will come down to hotel operations. Imagine F&B, imagine conferences, imagine your MICE and stuff like that. So that have to change. Then it impact the hotel business, your social distancing, and how we plan the rooms. Space planning is very important in hotels, and all this will have changed. And what does it mean? It means financial cost in investment in one hotel. Then our hotel balance sheets has to change to whether we need to incorporate certain crisis management balance sheet item, and that will increase the cost again and also lengthen the ROIs. Humans are very adaptive to environment. We change when it comes along. But when it comes to jurisdictions, when it comes to regulations, that is sometimes a bit rigid, where there's a lot of safeguarding have to be done. So when one side wants to safeguard certain responsibility and you push down, then to the bottom of it, the person that suffer tends to be the one that deliver, execute the project. And that is my one of my major concern of ongoing next phases of development of hotels. How do they really need to comply with all the various regulation now? Okay.
Thank you. Final thoughts from anyone else?
Go on, James. Go on.
I think just the purity of the relationships that I have with several of you on this panel, the human touch. Nobody knows what the future holds, truly. And I think if everyone just gets too freaked out about everything and what it's going to be, and people walking around with masks and gloves and suits, stay with the fundamentals. The fundamentals in life take you very, very far. And adjust your fundamentals to what is demanded by society in today's world that we live in. But love your customer. You're going to have to love them more, integrate with them more, speak to them more, love your employees more, and just stay real with it, and just stay normal, stay grounded, and it'll all work out. It's all going to work out.
I agree with that 100%. I mean, yes, there's physical things we have to do. There's considerations we have to make, and so on and so forth. Tommy, I buy that, but I think what is more important is all the things that we've been talking about, and to do things with integrity, to remain very connected. People want what we provide, so that's not in question and will not be in question. It's about, James said it, it's about love, love your people, love your guests, love your staff, love yourself. I have great respect, for the governor of New York, who's been doing some amazing things in the face of all that difficulty. And we all know, New York's my second home. We all know about New Yorkers. And there was a video that came out that you should all see a few weeks ago called New York Tough, that Governor Cuomo was narrating. And he ended it, and this is kind of from a hardcore New Yorker. He said, love will win. Love will win. And, how do you find a way to put sustainability and love and wellness and all these kind of out there concepts onto a P&L, right? Because that ought to be there. And how do we make that a part of our business? Something that comes from the heart, that becomes a real part of our business, that just makes us even more relevant post-COVID-19.
I think, Neil, I agree with both. Doris, please.
Ladies first.
No, I think, thank you, Nikhil. Yeah, no, I think that really, gives a fantastic conclusion, Neil. Thank you. And I believe that we should take one step at a time, do what we can do, look at what we have, and because then it will not be so daunting. And because sometimes worrying, takes over the action. So I think, like what James and Neil have said, just do it with your heart, live with your heart, and your mind in being practical, doing what you can do with what you have, and do it with sincerity. I think that is the most important. So, and like what Neil said, love, faith, hope, and sincerity and honesty will win.
And I'll end that with something my dad always told me. You know, these are tough times for all of us. And with love and all these great things, we can overcome it. But also don't waste the crisis. This is something that is like a great MBA class. I mean, you couldn't be in a better MBA class than this. This is real life. This is real. It brings people together. You see acts of kindness everywhere, small, big. And it makes you feel great about humanity because we've got through a lot more. And if we stick together, as the slogan, we are one, we will make it through this. And we want to bring everybody with us. And I think that's the beauty about this whole thing in our industry is this relationships, the emotional attachments, and how we want everybody to come together with us. And I think that's unique to this business.
Thank you so much. This has been a fantastic panel. I couldn't have asked for better guests and people that I respect. This is amazing. I want to ask any viewers who are watching this to also join us next week, in which we are being joined by several of the world's top travel editors and journalists, people that cover travel for a living. Again, thanks to all my panelists today, Nikhil, Neil, James, Doris, Tommy. You guys have been brilliant, and I love and respect all of you. And to everyone else, stay safe and never, ever stop exploring our planet. Travel. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good to see everyone.
Thank you.
Take care.
Yeah, thank you. Stay
Bye.
safe. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Yeah.